Okay, awesome. So just a quick intro before Gina begins. As I just mentioned, this session is being recorded, and it will be going onto my YouTube channel. So if you don't want to be on it, please cover up your video and cover up your name and let us know. I will be taking notes today. I'm also looking after the chat box. So if you have any questions that you want to ask privately or want me to ask on behalf of you, you can just message me privately or put it in the chat box, and I'll make sure that the team are able to hear it and answer it. And I'll be taking notes, so kind of any articles or videos or websites that the panel discuss, I'll be getting all the links for them. So if you'd like me to share my notes with you at the end, just send me a private message with your email and I will share them with you. Gina and I have been running these Tuesday sessions for the whole of March. We are both qualified B leaders, which means that we have been trained to help businesses through the B Corp assessment. My business is Better Not Stop. There's actually 4 B leaders in my business helping businesses with B Corp certification. I'll put a link to my LinkedIn in the chat, but I've also got a couple of free workshops coming up, one on sustainability as a sales tool, which is next week. And then the following week, I'm doing an in-depth deep dive into how to become B Corp certified in 2021. So I'll be going through all the areas of the assessment, things you need to know, legal requirements, all that jazz. I also recently launched with a couple of B leaders, the Better Business Network, which is a peer network and a community forum for people to learn to connect with other purpose-driven business owners. But again, in the chat, it's all about community today, and I just wanted to mention that. If you hear that whining, I don't have a prisoner in my house. I have a very, very whiny sausage dog behind me, which is why I'm going to be putting myself on mute for most of this discussion. So thanks so much, everybody, for joining. Look forward to catching up with you all in the chat, and I'll let Gina introduce the panel.
Thanks, Hannah. Saved by the bell there. Well, thanks, everybody, for joining. Fantastic turnout today. As Hannah said, it's B Corp Month, and we have been doing weekly sessions which covers all of the topics related to the B Corp assessment, which covers workers, customers, environment, community and governance. And this week we're going to talk about community. My name is Gina Mula. Our mission at Mulashaker is to help brands activate change through purposeful design, and that's through brand activation and business change. And as part of being part of communities, last year there were 2 communities which really helped me see the world through a different lens. The first one was B Corp, which was the catalyst for me starting another business and really helped me to understand that there was a better way to do business. And the second one was the Bob Earth community, which helped me to deploy the learnings of Business for Good through a curriculum of weekly educational sessions and meeting like-minded purpose-led business owners who were navigating the pandemic. So today we're going to talk to 3 people from that community, all led and founded by Lindsay Boyd. And we've got Catherine Plunkett, who's on today, who's also the CEO of the Business of Brand and the Bob Earth community. So I'm going to do a very short intro, and then I'm going to hand over and ask the guys to introduce themselves. So first we've got Lindsay Boyd, who is author, global speaker, founder of Bob Earth, global network of purpose-driven entrepreneurs helping businesses to connect, learn and trade to impact positive change in the world. We've got Andrew Russell from Aaron Sense of Scotland. We've got Elizabeth Marsh, who is the creator of the Golden Leaf Project, and Danielle Chale. Hopefully she's here today. I'm not sure I've seen Danielle. If she does, hopefully she will join. She's from a company called Knit One Change One, who was also voted 2019 B Corp honoree for community. So that was a real mouthful. But Lindsay, thank you for joining us, and thank you for creating the Business of Brand, the Bob Earth community. Can you tell us a little bit about the Bob Earth community and why that was created and why it's so important for brands and businesses to create communities? Oh, Lindsay, you're just on mute, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Lovely to meet you all today. I see some very friendly faces looking back at us, some of our own Bob community and some that aren't. Thanks for coming on today to discuss around the power of community and how purpose-led communities are now leading the way for a new era of trade. We started Bob really because we wanted to connect businesses all around the world to unite so that they could learn together to grow and trade with each other to impact change in the world. And Catherine, myself, and Darren Sherlaw, who's the founder of Bob as well, we came together because we all had a common belief that institutions alone were never going to make the change, and the change was always going to come from the people and not from the institutions. And so we decided to create a business model called Bob Earth, which is a purpose-led platform. And we talk about that being a platform for good, a campaigning platform for good. And what we're really here to do is shift the world into a new era through the eyes of brands and really lead into a new space by creating the face of modern business and the face of the modern world. Can I just pass over to Catherine quickly, because she might want to add into that slightly from running the business perspective and how she looks at the business and community and how we've been driving purpose into everything that we do.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Lindsay. Really lovely to see so many friendly faces here today. So as Lindsay said, I'm really fortunate that I spend my time working with so many inspiring and purposeful businesses and business leaders. And we're working together to shift the world, and we're doing that, shifting each industry through a ecosystem of entrepreneurs and businesses that are coming together in our community to do good and to create that shift. So yeah, excited to be here, and thank you, Gina, for having us.
Thanks. And Gina, you know, there's many of the businesses that are about to be on this panel that have been through the community, and it's quite exciting actually to sit on this panel today with yourself and with our Bob family and community and have a really good chat and a cup of tea and talk about for the next hour one of mine and Catherine's favourite topics. So thanks for pulling it together.
Well, no, you're welcome. And the reason I wanted to invite specifically, friends from the Bob community was, having been a business founder in a previous life, the learnings that I went through last year, being part of a community of like-minded people, completely shifted my thinking of what it meant to run a business. And from, being a very kind of siloed business owner to then becoming, a business owner that really understood what it meant to be integrated and campaigning with other people, not just from the same industry, but other industries, sharing ideas, going from competition to collaboration. I think we've all seen the benefits and the impact that has had, not just on our own businesses, but the impact in our communities as a whole. And there's been some incredible stories behind that. And Andrew Russell, I would love to lead with you here, because I've met you through the Business of Brand community. I feel like we're friends, even though I physically haven't met you, but we've both been interviewed by Lindsay, and we've both kind of commented lots on each other's interview. But you had a really incredible story during last year, particularly during the pandemic. And I know the Bob Earth community really kind of advised and helped you how to manage that whole period. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and Aaron Sense of Scotland and your impact in the community during that time?
Sure, I'll do my best. Thank you very much for the introduction and for the Bob community as well. It's been great to meet everybody. And I think I said the last 12 months of all of that community has been as vital as the vaccine. for us, you know, and it certainly has been a real boost to have that through the time, and meeting everybody as well. So yeah, my name is Andrew Russell. I'm Sales and Marketing Director for Arran Sense of Scotland. We are a 30-year-old bath and body manufacturer based on the Isle of Arran, originally my family business, and our purpose is to help the world connect with nature. And we kind of discovered our purpose through the pandemic. I think it's too long a story for this session, but when I first met Lindsay, I couldn't find it at all, and I really struggled with it. And that was in January of 2020, and it was really disruptive to me after years of being in business and marketing, and sort of priding myself on operating at a level that I just couldn't come up with it. And then through the almost a year ago, I think it was probably March the 18th, the sort of first thing for us, the turning point was on the Isle of Arran. There was no sanitizer, there was nothing to help people protect themselves. And it was my mum, who was the founder of our business, phoned me up and said, "You've got to do something. What can we do?" And so I got my head together with the other directors, and we gave away 15,000 bars of soap to the island so that everybody could wash their hands. So it was like 5 bars for every family. And we did that. And of course, when you give something away, suddenly people start to say, "Have you got any more?" Thankfully, I was probably, this was going into April, and probably 3 or 4 twice weekly Bob webinars down to figure out how we were going to manage that. And at the same time, we were getting all these letters and emails from people in care in the community, care homes, the NHS, and they were all going, "Look, you know, it's really such a stressful environment." Many of them didn't have basics like sanitizer as well at that time, because nobody knew this was coming. And you know, but they were saying, you know, we're so stressed, and you know, it's really, you know, what the Arran products really help us relax at the end of the day, decompress, and they help us get going in the morning. So we worked out again with our at this point, we'd kind of figured out that, you know, we're getting close to figuring out our purpose, and people telling us what it actually meant to them. And that was where, okay, we're connecting our asset, which is the Isle of Arran, and the inspiration of the Isle of Arran, which runs through all of our fragrances and helps people lift them up or helps them relax. So we basically set ourselves the target to support as many people as possible. So we'd gone from a kind of local community, because we were right in that, thinking what could we do that would go local or more national. And we'd made all of these little 50 ml bottles of product and soap and everything for all of our hotel clients, because you can find their products in a lot of hotel bedrooms. So that was just sitting in the warehouse doing nothing because everywhere was closed. So we decided, persuaded, kind of probably shamed everybody into going, look, let's give all of this away. So we gave away a few 100,000 pieces of product. I bought 2 members of staff back from furlough to give away all of this stuff to the island, to the communities. We got down into probably quite far down into England before we ran out of hospitals, care homes, and care in the community to give product to. And we did it, you know, we just said, look, we know you can't get a break, we know you need to decompress, you know, you need to relax, so here's something from us to do that. So that sort of engaged the national community for us, if you like, because people wrote to us, sent us amazing pictures. They made love hearts out of soaps and bottles and stuff in the reception areas of hospitals and stuff. It was really quite overwhelming. And then we asked lots of people to tell us how they were sort of decompressing. So that was our kind of massive push, and that was April, May last year. And then sort of following from that, stop me if I'm chucking out too much or not enough in doing that. But then we kind of thought, well, okay, what can we do to sort of keep that momentum going? And we wanted to help the island, because the island where we are has 4,500 people, but it's a tourist hotspot. There are nearly always 30,000 tourists on it for most of the year. And they weren't there last year. So the island was on its knees completely. 12% of Scotland is employed in tourism. On the island, it's about 34%. It just knocked it for 6. So we thought, what can we do? Because at this point, I look back in June when we all thought we were getting out for good, come July. And so we wanted to sort of draw attention to the island and what it meant to people. So we created a podcast, the sponsors a podcast, just to sort of draw attention to what well-being and mental well-being meant to locals and to visitors to the island. Had some local guests, some celebrity guests come on and just tell us what the island meant to them, just to draw awareness to the island, so that when we figured when people actually were able to travel again, where were they going to go first? I don't think we're too worried about that. People just want out now, but it was back at the time, we wanted to do something and give back to our local community. And that was really positive. And the last thing that we did was, I think just it was about October last year. So it was before the sort of Unite on Purpose Summit that Bob Earth were organising, but after we'd sort of gone through, I think it was August, Lindsay, that we did our sort of first campaigning piece. So we came up with our own a sort of what we were calling an industry campaign, because as the hospitality industry was reopening, the challenge was, people were wanting to travel and support their own well-being, but also the people that were working in this industry as well had a real pounding through that time. So we thought, what can we do to try and bring our industry together to campaign? So we got about 30 of our clients together, and we all came up with a campaign of Unite on Wellbeing, which was to push short breaks basically for them. But because the industry was really suffering, we said, okay, we'll pay for the rooms, we'll give people product to sort of enjoy when they're there. So it was really fully supportive to try and see how can we do something. And I think it was probably a 6 out of 10 we might have got in marks from Bob for campaign execution on it, because we kind of threw it together really quick. But it created some great relationships out of that with our existing clients, but also we were able to bring in Visit Scotland, Scottish Rugby. We were able to bring in organisations that we would not have touched before by doing it. So I guess apologies everybody for just kind of thrashing those out there. There was kind of the local soap giveaway on the island, which is really local community, the sort of national bit with to the NHS, care homes and care in the community, and then the podcast was back local again, and then the wellbeing campaign was with the industry. So I'm trying to think if we've missed any out there, Lindsay. Probably we've not gone up to society or global yet, but it was most of these. Probably the last one was the one that we actually put some thought into, even though I said we only had 8 days to do it. Everything else was really responsive, and we had to kind of just do on the hoof. So hopefully I helped. I haven't let you get a word in. Sorry,
Gina, from a Bob perspective, Andrew and a few of the people that are on the panel today have been like a poster campaign. They're like in the olden days when you put a poster up of your poster child. These are like the people that we called them our Bob heroes, because they really were, and Catherine, I'm smiling at Catherine as well, they really were the heroes that were going through the community with us. And we were watching these people, Andrew, and I know you're going to talk about Elizabeth and so forth, literally go out and Danielle and wrap their arms around communities and go, we're here for you. And I know that we were teaching them to move into a human response and stop selling and start leading in a space. But, at the same time, it was a big step for businesses to do that when, people were dropping 80, 90, some 100% in revenue, and you're sat in a space of shock and you're in a space of recovery and you're trying to figure out what to do with your business. And all of a sudden, we're saying, go out and wrap your arms around the community and start giving. And I have to acknowledge them from where they were and then where they are now, and how they've driven their businesses through the pandemic and led with purpose and driven it into the whole of the supply chain and not just as a marketing strapline.
And I think
can I also add, sorry, Gina, I was just going to add, because it's a key bit from us giving the how do you persuade, we have, a varied share ownership. It's not just me. We have private equity investment as well as directors owning the business. So, looking to give away, the soap giveaway was one thing, and that was relatively small by comparison. But then, giving away a few 100,000 pieces of product was a six-figure, cash sum for them to part with. And whilst it wasn't going anywhere else at the time, that's quite hard to get a room full of accountants to go for. And they were, but because we'd had such great feedback to the soap giveaway on the island, and then we were picked up by Mark Hayes on GMTV, and it was, just the goodwill that was coming back to us. I mean, our sales in April and May went up 3 and 4 times. And again, everything else was shut, obviously, but there was, it was awareness, that awareness piece, and all of that. I guess the purpose before profit was an easier sell to our board, because we've all got people to keep on the right side of for all of these things, but actually it already demonstrated that it was worth doing, to the point now that it's not a difficult conversation. It's just figuring out how we do that best. Sorry, I hope that makes sense.
It's such an incredible story, Andrew, and I don't tire listening to it, to be honest, because as a brand, when you talk about going from 20th century to 21st century thinking, going from turning disruption into opportunity, you have beautifully demonstrated how you did that in practice. And not only did that have a knock on to sales of the product, but the business became such an integral part of the whole island and beyond. The legacy that you're creating through that business, which I'm sure, having been in that space myself of selling a service or a product, traditionally would have just been about that. Yeah. What you've done is completely pivoted, created the why of why it's so important to create that movement of change. Nobody is going to forget that, and the customer base surrounding that will be incredibly loyal and grateful for that. But your incentive to do that was to help. It wasn't to think of reasons why you should sell more product. It was help the community that needed support, and that generosity that the business gave has had a huge impact, and it is an incredible story, and I love hearing it. Thank you for that.
Thanks. Thank you.
I'm sure the next stage will be global, and so I'm sure we're going to be back here next year having the same conversation. But talking of global, I'm really delighted to see that Danielle Chale has joined us. Danielle, where are you? Where are you? There you are. Hello. Danielle joins us from Australia. Hi, Danielle.
Hi, Gina. Thank you.
I know it's late in the day for you down there, but I'm really pleased you've been able to join us. Danielle is also part of the Bob community and has an incredible business called Knit One, Change One. Danielle, I'd love for you to just introduce us to the business that you created, why you created it, and it's got an incredible community impact. Can you tell us the story behind that, please?
Sure, I'm happy to share all that. But before I do, I just wanted to share, I just want to ask a question. Is this specifically with the B Corp focus answer?
Well, it's a combination of things. We're celebrating B Corp Month, and this month this week, we're talking about community. But what brings us together today is the Bob Earth community brings yourself, Andrew, Liz Marsh, myself together as part of a community that were either B Corps or businesses who are purpose-led. But our shared learnings from deploying the learnings from the Bob Earth community has helped us navigate through the pandemic. And our connection is obviously knowing that you were also a B Corp. but we actually met through the Bob Earth community.
Okay, so that's a lot of threads to tie together, excuse me using the pun, but I'll try and tie in the B Corp, the building the community, the Bob platform and all of it. But I know so many people on this platform, so thank you very much, and please excuse the Australian accent to all those other people listening. Yeah, so I own this business in India and it's called Knit One, Change One. And depending on what day of the week, you ask me what I do, I wear a different hat with an answer. But at its core, we're an import-export business. If you ask me on another day, we're a garment manufacturer. If you ask me on another day, because we were awarded or named best in the world by B Corp for building communities, you know, we do that. And if you ask me on another day, I'm actually rewriting the way that corporates deal with or better their corporate social responsibility program. So to build the community, what we do is no different to what Lindsay and Bob has done. And that is just to get everybody together on a regular basis. And there are so few people and so few businesses and so few organizations in the world that actually do that and give platforms for sharing communication. But at the end of the day, if people have a common purpose and they're given a platform to share it, it happens naturally by default. And it sounds so easy, but as you know, Bob's had to work so incredibly hard to get everybody's voice in together. And it's no different with the ladies that I work with, that from the very beginning, what we do is the ladies, because on another day, you know, my job is going into rural villages and finding women who have never been to school and making sure that they have regular income so that the education cycle is broken in their village and the financial cycle is broken in their village. But because these are ladies are raised to be compliant, you know, they're raised by their parents and they don't go to school, so they only know one set of rules and that's their parents, so they're compliant to their parents. They then have arranged marriages, and then after that they get married and they have to do what their husband does. So these women have no thinking skills whatsoever. So for the day that they meet us, we ask them questions and we problem solve in groups, and to bring communities together for problem solving. So when they ask me a question, you know, if I wanted to be rude on one day, I'm like, I'm not your Panadol for problems. But other days we say, you know, let's brainstorm together in a circle. How are we going to solve this issue? And the ladies are there all to support each other. And like the Bob community, when you have people together, brainstorming together, everybody feels very supported by everybody else. And the same as the Bob community, if somebody has an issue, anybody can reach out to anybody and ask for support. So that's really how that works. And we're rewriting the corporate social rules of corporate social responsibility, because not only do we knit for fashion brands, but we're partnering with corporates because we are a garment manufacturer. Any corporates who want to adopt our values of building communities, being certified B Corp, helping these women have a voice, helping them educate their families, they too can come on board with gift giving of jumpers. So if a corporate, you know, all corporates give gifts to their staff, to their A-grade customers, their staff give gifts to their families. And so when we partner with corporates, they then too, instead of giving money for charity, are supporting something that they see that happens directly. And that's how that model of changing corporate responsibility is actually happening. But feel free to ask any questions, because there's a lot of ground covered in there. And because we are B Corp certified, you know, there's 90 pages of documentation that gets filled out every couple of years to tick all those boxes as well. So ask away.
So Danielle, being you know, a business that makes garments for fashion brands, why do you think it's so important that your role in building communities is needed?
Well, the role in building communities is what goes on in India, because these women have no thinking skills, no identity. And whilst the world cries out, Black Lives Matter, and of course, it doesn't really matter what the color of your skin is, anybody who feels that they're being treated in an inferiority manner, it's important that they have a voice. And this is a huge amount of the world's population who people don't realize don't have a voice. And I feel, as those of you that know me very strongly, that I'm their sole representative for millions of these women who come from rural villages, so that they do have a voice, so that they can get educated, and the world does know that they're here. And fashion brands hook onto that because finally they have a responsibility. And they can have a big influence on this, and they do.
Gina, coming from the fashion world, and Danielle and I have had many discussions, and I remember Danielle walking into the school when I was teaching actually in Australia in the year, and she blew me away with the fact that in the fashion industry, people are typically, and it's only really, I mean, I worked with an activist called Catherine Hamnett, who was one of the only women really at the time that was an activist for change in the fashion world, and that was many years ago. And then over this period of time, the fashion industry has become more susceptible to sustainability and how they're creating the garment and where they're creating the garment from. But what Danielle had done, which was what I really loved, and the kind of next step that I really felt like the fashion industry needed to embrace, was that she'd gone and created a movement, a community that wasn't led from the brand and about the brand. So in regard of, you know, these are my tops and this is my range, and of course we're making it sustainable and blah 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 blah, tick a box, tick a box, tick a box. What Danielle had done was she'd started with the movement and started with the women and started with the community and driven it into the fashion industry. And Danielle is very humble, I would say, in talking about who she's worked with. You know, there's some incredible people like Alexa Chung and, you know, real household name brands that she has worked with and that have used her knitting and her garments and so forth. And she's driving a new way in the fashion industry. And look, it's an education piece for the fashion industry, because I assure you, I worked in it for 19 years. They do not think in the way that Danielle thinks. And because of the pandemic and the recession, there's a huge opportunity now for them to embrace what she's doing. And what Danielle needs around her is supporters to be able to come around her and even bring some of these influential people around her to actually stand by her side and say, we need to lead from the community and the village and not lead from the product and the fashion brand. And that way the dial would shift in the supply chain, so people are thinking about it in the reverse way rather than thinking about it, I'm a brand and this is, and I'm just going to do good by getting this garment manufactured in a certain way.
You know, one of the things we talked about in Environment Week last week, and it obviously was all around sustainability, but this misconception that sustainability is just about waste or how much water is used, or
exactly
the circular economy. A huge part of sustainability is about people and how you treat your people and what impact you can make on those communities. And, you know, when we talk about global communities, I agree, Lindsay. I think what Danielle does is kind of lead that charge right from the person perspective.
From the person, yeah.
Again, lots of conversations around the responsibility that fashion brands particularly should and must have when it comes to their people and the impact it has on their communities, and creating, you know, a more balanced society, whether that's a financial society or you know, you know, the healthcare and how we deliver that for all communities. Danielle, obviously last year was a hugely difficult time globally. I imagine the impact, therefore, on what you could deliver into your communities, which hugely impacted. How did that work for you?
Well, it was massive. What I haven't shared, and I don't mind sharing on this platform actually, was I had just got out of heart surgery. So I got, I had a really bad experience in India, what people didn't, you know, everybody's worst nightmare. So I just literally recuperated 3 months out of that, and COVID hit. So between practically losing my life in India and COVID, I actually thought the end had come. I was really in a bad way, but you know, like all business owners, you go through tough times, and if you hang in there long enough, stuff happens. So before COVID, I used to employ 250 women full time, and then it went down to 10. And then, you know, at that point in time, I cried myself to sleep thinking I'm going to be worse off and homeless, worse off than these women that I employ for a while. But, you know, we hung in there and we're building back up. And just today I employed another 50 staff, and we're actually getting super busy. So very soon we're going to pass where we were before COVID. And it is the aim of the women in India to be the largest all-girls company in the world from women who have never been to school.
Wow, that's incredible. Gosh, wow. So you've literally gone...
And we will hit that target within the next few years. Yeah.
That's incredible. And have you, the fashion brands that you're working with, Danielle, are they on board helping you achieve that goal? Are they on board with that movement, or is this literally your drive to create impact?
The fashion brands come on board. They love hearing the story, but they're purely driven by profit and what they can get. So we have to tick those boxes first of all. You know, as I say to them, my real job is to make sure that we employ as many women in rural villages as possible so that they can have a voice and speak up to their husbands and say, you know, don't hit me, you know, I know what I want now. And by the way, we just happen to produce the best hand knitted jumpers in the world. So what would you like us to knit? And as Lindsay mentioned, the traditional model comes out of China, where they have something to prove. Exactly. So the first thing that brands ask us is, show us what garments you've knitted for other brands, and can you name drop who else do you knit for? And as I immediately reply, no, we don't, because the reason that we get the brands that we do is we have 100% confidentiality, and I don't actually have to prove anything. That should I be so lucky you give us a jumper that we can't knit, I'll knit it for you for free, no matter what the quantity is. So we don't have to I don't operate on that model, like to prove what I can do. I've never come from that background. Yeah, so that's the way that we work with those brands.
It's interesting, Gina, in that world that the world is still in the same place that it was when I was in that world 9 years ago. And they're still coming to a lady like Danielle. And in my world, I'm just flabbergasted by the fact that she has all these huge brands coming there, seeing what she's doing. And still, none of them are embracing that methodology and what she's doing and bringing it into and around their businesses and their brands when they have the opportunity to do that. And that's the shift of the whole of the industry from the fashion brand down through to the manufacturing space. And Danielle is unique in that way, hugely unique, still in an environment that is hugely driven by very corporate led organizations that are profit first and not purpose first.
So what you might be interested to know is on every garment, and we have brands, quite large brands working with us right now that all of you know, runway brands all around the world. And every garment goes out with a swing tag of the name of the knitter, because my belief is that human beings are not units of labor, that one person knits one whole garment. That's how it's like knit one garment, change one life. That's how the whole business was established. So every garment goes out with a swing tag on the garment. And when we're on Zoom calls with customers, I say to them, we can do whatever you like to help you with your marketing campaign. We can actually have you meet the knitters. We can put those knitters on television. We can translate for you. We can give you videos to go into their homes and everything. And they all wow and wow. And no one takes us up on the offer, and no one drives a marketing campaign like that. And we have said that to, no kidding, more than 500 runway brands.
That's incredible. And we know that, you know, the organizations and the companies and the businesses and the brands that are going to survive are the ones that demonstrate real authenticity.
It's pretty tricky for their words and actions to match, because some of them believe it in their hearts. Some of them say it because they feel that if they don't say it, they'll be condemned. And I'm not sure if they'll believe it. But as I say to the women that work with me in India, it's like, from the day that they meet me, when words and actions match, that's what builds trust and reliability. So if you tell me you're going to be at work at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, like, one of the more serious conversations I've had in India is who will walk the goat. So when I start a new village, that is their biggest decision. Who is going to walk the goat? Because if I come to work all day with you, who is going to walk the goat? So, but what I teach these ladies from the very beginning is, if you tell me you're going to be at work at 9 o'clock, if you are not there, that means that I can't trust you. So when words and actions match, that's what builds trust and reliability. So when I build that with the ladies, it's really hard to actually have that going on at that end. And then with the brands, that actually doesn't happen. So there's a big mismatch. And that's actually how we get nominated for building, and recognized for building communities, because they're super strong, super strong. And these ladies know that if somebody else promises them something, it will actually happen within the whole village, within the whole business. And as I explained to them, if you tell me you're going to be there at 9 o'clock, and if you don't show up for me, I'm leaving.
Danielle, there's some comments.
I mean,
there's some comments coming through, people saying amazing, wow.
Oh, thank you. I'm just reading it.
Super inspiring. Question from Emily Fraser. Do you find the men in these communities are receptive and supportive of building independence of women?
Some of them are, some of them aren't, but you won't be surprised. I'm asked about the men a lot. And usually the answer I give is, it's seriously more than a full-time job looking after the women. So, if I'm going to be blunt, sometimes I say I don't care really what happens to the men. But what I do want to tell you is, most of these women are married to really, really, really bad men. Most of them are drunk. More than 95% of them are drunk. Many of the women work really hard, as long as hours as you and I, and when they get the pay at the end of the month, they have to give it to their unemployed husband, who spends it on drink money. So it's super, super tough for many of these people. And I think it's super important that these ladies learn to stick up for themselves and have enough money to do what they want. So my job is just selling jumpers, basically.
Selling jumpers.
That's what happens. So my job is like selling lives to educate women.
And completely shifting cultures at the same time. You're not just having...
Yes, every village we go into, we change the entire culture forever and ever. And every year that we're entrenched there, when the children come up to me, we've already got the next generation coming through who go to school, who learn English, and come up to me and says, Mum wants to say something to me. I mean, it's incredibly rewarding.
Wow, fantastic. Gosh, incredible story.
I didn't know I was joining a B Corp and a Bob school to talk about this, though. So, I've taken up a lot of airspace, and I had no idea that that was going to happen. I'm sure there's a lot of other people on this panel that have very interesting stories to tell too. But thank you for listening, and happy for you to ask any questions.
No, you're right. We've got one other person. Thanks, Danielle. And we've got Liz Marsh on here today. And previous to you joining us, Danielle, we had Andrew Russell, who spoke to us about the impact his business was having on the Isle of Arran. And Liz, another Bob Earth.
Can I just, before you go on to that though, can I just ask anybody who wants to connect with me just to send me a message through LinkedIn, please?
Thanks, Danielle. We'll share your details anyway.
I'm the only Danielle Cheel there, so just send me a message. It's easy. Thanks.
Thanks, Danielle. Hey, Liz. So let's come over to you. So we also met on the Bob Earth community, but actually you are a founder of your own business. But that's not the reason why we're here today. We're here to talk to you about another community that you're creating. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Hi, yeah, thank you for having me on here, and some really inspiring stories. So yeah, so I came across Bob's School about 6 years ago now, I think, 5-6 years ago. My background is floristry, floral design. I've had my own company for around 20 years, but I've only really been building it up since 2009. And in 2016, having bumped into Darren Sherlaw through various other sort of things that he was involved with, I then discovered Bob's School. So I did the brand DNA there and started really thinking about, I'd already been thinking about, well, what do I do beyond selling flowers? And I started kind of going up the tree to what my real purpose was. And sustainability is something that's always been very close to my heart, but I made an assumption that no one was interested, because generally they weren't, to be honest. I mean, in the corporate world, no one gave a damn. So I just didn't talk about it. And it was when I did sort of Bob's School, I sort of for the first time thought, well, maybe I should start talking about it a little bit and just see how it goes. And it's kind of built up from there. I joined the L&D program last year, just at the beginning of lockdown. And so my kind of main business lost 80% of its sort of daily work, if you like, the things that we do on a day-by-day basis because of the COVID. But I consider myself incredibly lucky that two of my main customers decided to carry on supporting us. And one of them carried on until December. They were a venue, the QE2 Centre. And they only stopped because they weren't actually earning any money themselves either. And they were like, we can't actually afford to support you anymore. And the other one, who I can't name, is a large corporate who's got a big name in philanthropy, and they're still supporting us now. And I just thought how incredible that was, that you know, two large sort of corporate entities could do that. And it felt like a reversal of the value system. And then I think, my immediate thought was, how can I pay it forward? So we started a little campaign around inviting people to buy a posy to donate to an NHS worker, to say, we're thinking of you. Cost about 20 quid. So, you know, with the furlough scheme, everyone actually had money. So it wasn't too much to ask people to give a little to help the NHS workers who at the time didn't really know what they were risking by carrying on working. And then we donated all the funds that we raised to the National Emergency Trust. And that kind of ran its course really by sort of June, when we started to think we were coming out of lockdown, certainly for the summer. And so I started thinking what else we could do. And I was particularly struck by the furlough scheme, because I think for me, it's the first time that I can think since the creation of the NHS that humanitarian values have been served by logistical values rather than the other way around. And I suppose my business straddles various different sort of elements, but one of the elements is the built environment. And it's always sort of broken my heart to watch nature being eroded and replaced by, you know, bricks and mortar with no sense of balance. So I thought, you know, over the summer, we all enjoyed nature. Everyone started talking about engagement with nature as if it was this new miraculous thing. And I just thought, I can't bear the thought of us going back to how we were before and really abusing the planet and just depleting our natural resources without forcing everyone to, if that's what we're going to do, then it has to be a conscious decision rather than drifting back because we never thought to do anything else. So as a person, I'm a great believer in putting a stake in the sand and sort of marking the spot where I never want to go back beyond that spot again. And I thought, well, what can I do to put a stake in the sand? And so at the time, I came up with the idea of creating a ribbon of vegetation to run across London so animals could cross the city without crossing a main road. And that really sort of derived out of the conservation techniques used by WWF and a lot of the, the more exotic animal conservation campaigns. And I thought, it's about time we started treating our own species, our own indigenous species, as conservation campaigns, because actually, the insect population is depleted by 70%. I mean, this is insane what's going on to the natural world. So I thought, well, by saying this, even if I just said this to every person in the world, it would force them to think about what they're doing. It would force them to actually have an opinion about what happens next. And I thought, who knows where we can take this? Maybe we can take it beyond just me saying that. Maybe we can take it to a conversation. Maybe we can take it to an exhibition. Maybe we could actually create it. So I thought I'll start by just saying it and see what happens. So I did start saying it, and I was quite surprised at how positive the response was. I was kind of assuming that people would just laugh at me and kind of go, yeah, right, whatever. But they didn't. They said, oh my God, that's a really beautiful idea. I really love that idea. So I thought, okay, well, I'll say it with a bit more confidence then. So Gina and Lisa Drake are actually two of the people that really sort of helped me in the run up to Christmas to keep going with this idea, which, I didn't have a lot of confidence in it, and was thinking, people are going to think I'm insane. So I was kind of, where do I take this? But we did sort of take it on, and we rolled out a series of interviews. So I did 7 interviews. And I started off just talking about sustainability because it's such a huge subject. Like, what is it? What does that mean to you? And the idea was to then sort of graduate onto what can we do together to make the planet more sustainable? And it kind of naturally evolved into people saying that they quite liked, it was actually the 7 people I interviewed who didn't really get a chance to talk to each other. We used the Building Society, which is Elliot Wood's headquarters space. And people were kind of coming and going, and they were kind of meeting, and then kind of snatches of conversation, and then they have to go off to their interview, or they have to go off to their next thing. And they all kind of agreed that, oh, it's a shame we didn't really get to talk to each other. So we said, well, why don't we get together, all of us, and have dinner and let's talk. And so everyone was kind of really up for that. And then we invited a few more people. And so suddenly we had around sort of 20 to 30 people who wanted to get together to talk about sustainability and ribbons of vegetation. This kind of built up in the run up to Christmas, and I started to talk to increasingly senior people and increasingly global people, to the point where we're actually having a presentation tomorrow, which will be our 3rd attempt to produce some kind of deck. It'll be the first time that we'll actually have some visuals based on what this project might look like in reality. We're going to introduce our global stakeholders. We've been joined by one of the stakeholders in the New York High Line, a guy called Joe McDonald. He's got a company, and he's a professor in architecture and landscaping, who's just completely leapt on board this and is just absolutely determined to help me to take it somewhere real. We've got a creative director from Los Angeles. I've got someone from Friends of the Earth and the National Park City Foundation on my advisory board. Lord Fink is behind us. Coming to the event tomorrow night, we are expecting representatives from the GLA. Nigel Topping is sending a representative from his Climate Change Champions group at COP26. So we've got this rather extraordinary network of people, which I'm hoping tomorrow to turn into a community. So what the project is, which is the question we spent about 5 months trying to answer in the run up to Christmas, is it's to create ribbons of vegetation alongside the A4, which is a logistical charge. I don't know if you've ever looked at a map of London, but if you look at the map of London, it runs east to west across London and literally divides it into two. The thing about London is there's no sense of community in London. So what we want to do is to plant this road, which means that the bars and restaurants and shops that are situated along that road, instead of looking out onto traffic, they'll look out onto vegetation and the idea of maybe the beginnings of a garden. Driving along the road, it will feel less like driving along a logistical charge and more like driving along an avenue. Apparently, it's been proven that driving along an avenue reduces speed by 30%, just by the sheer fact, the psychology of it, that you're driving along an avenue. So the idea is to create a new cafe society space to lobby Parliament to ask for the right for people to be able to close this road one Sunday a quarter for whatever it is that they want, maybe the London Marathon, the Notting Hill Carnival, street markets, street festivals, street fairs, whatever. But the most important thing about this road is there'll be little side roads, little veins of the leaf that run off to national parks, to wetland centres, to areas of national interest, biodiversity projects, regeneration projects, the Camden High Line. There's a plethora of amazing and intriguing spaces around London that currently are fairly siloed. The idea is to connect them not just metaphorically, but tangibly, so that tourists and from this country and abroad can actually walk along this road and just follow any one of these side roads marked by the gold leaf symbol and arrive at a place where they can be educated about Indigenous planting, biodiversity, what's so special about any particular region, or whatever the cause is that that place is heralding, but that we can actually start to embrace the outdoor life, lead a healthier life, generate some tourism, create some infrastructure to drive London and therefore the UK out of recession, and to really sort of create a sense of London community for the first time. The idea is to create a case study that can then be replicated in any city, anywhere in the world, and ultimately to create the golden ribbon of vegetation, which will actually link all the gold leaves around the world, so that perhaps students of the future, instead of getting their round your world plane ticket before they go off to find a job, they can actually buy a 2-year sort of rental on an app, access to a route around which they can travel the world, visiting some of these golden leaves, projects around solar energy, wind farms, biodiversity projects, permaculture centres, whatever it is, but that they can actually learn about how to live in harmony with nature. So one of our mantras is to live as a part of nature, not apart from nature. So that's kind of the quickest I've probably ever said that. It's quite a complex project. It's kind of a combination of sort of a living art project, a sustainability project, a tourism project, which has its strengths and its downsides. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of it in a nutshell, really.
Thanks, Liz. I think what's really fascinating about this project is like you say, it probably started as a sustainability conversation, but actually it's grown into bringing together different industries, sectors, different communities, different countries. The people that are involved in this were all from different sectors, but we're all aligned because we're all having the conversation about being purpose-led, and the whole thing around, what's our legacy? What really do we want to leave behind? How do we join together as a societal, as a global community to impact that change? And how do we create those authentic conversations? And I think that's why people were so interested in it. Is it just came from a good place. It was around, well, what can we do? And I think the power is in the people. The power is in the people generating those continuous conversations, which is just, as Danielle said, it just keeps going. The vision just keeps growing. And I think because more and more people are interested in it. And it all started in this community. It started in the Bob Earth community, with you just talking about it one day, and you mentioned it on an interview with Lindsay, and I was like, and I remember going, oh my God, that's amazing. We've got to do it. It sounded ridiculous, and yet here we are. We're continuing that conversation, and that's the powerful thing about community.
What I will say as well about Elizabeth, when Elizabeth came into the school, she has such a quiet drive and determination. It's not, in your face, it's not shouty, yet she's really got this space where she gets stuff done. And she comes in and she quietly, starts building stuff out and inspiring people around her. And before you know it, she's got loads of people around her that are all, building out the projects with her. And she's really, really purpose driven, and she comes from the heart. So, from the Posy project that you did, delivering the flowers, through to your own project, through to for Bob, she did the most stunning Women's Day project for us, where she delivered a flower to women in our community we called it the Spotlight campaign, where we spotlighted women for the day. And Elizabeth, I had women ringing me, Janet, who's the head of the mayor's office, and the head of EY Women, and they both, and Paula from the London Stock Exchange, and each one said to me, that was the most incredible, inspiring campaign, because whilst there was so much noise on Women's Day, we felt so special that you'd sent us a flower, that the flower was beautiful, that it was, that you'd connected all these women together. So you really are that. You are the flower, actually, in the whole bunch of flowers, that before you know it, you've got this amazing bloom that's sat there, and that really is how I think about you. So I massively want to acknowledge you for being part of the community as well. And I've loved watching you grow over the last year and all the different projects that you've done.
Thank you. I don't know if you got it, but the grass, that loop was meant to be the breast cancer loop. I don't know if that.
Oh right, okay. It was just beyond stunning. No, I did not get that, but now that's an extra. You see, there's an extra layer that always comes out. There's so much thought that is taken place in everything you do. I just love it. It's beautiful. Thank you.
The bit that I found so fascinating listening, to that is at the last sentence when she was speaking, Elizabeth, you said, and that's it in a nutshell. So I don't know about you, but I think everybody else on this panel thought there was more than one nutshell there.
Remember thanks to the conversations with Liz.
I think the number of times I've talked to people who said, now get that down to 15. I think we started off with get it down to half an hour, get it down to 15 minutes. And then the last one was like, get it down to 5 minutes, Liz. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to do that. So for me, that was a nutshell. Yeah, I have to say.
It's a pretty good nutshell.
Thank you.
One of the things, Gina, that I want to acknowledge of the three, and also there's many other businesses that are on this session, is each one of them understands the difference between a marketing strapline and building it into the whole of the business model. And every single one of them comes in with such strength and determination, and actually drives purpose and drives it through the commercial business model, but to be able to, yes, make money for themselves, but actually more importantly, to give back and to provide good in the world and to lead with purpose and so forth. And it inspires us when we watch and see all the businesses starting to kind of grow and flourish and build the business out, and then connect with the other people in the community to actually trade together. And we always say that trade really in a new way drives back into the community rather than just out for yourself into the open world.
And I think sometimes you just need other people around you to help you believe that you can do more and it's okay to do that, and you have the tools around you to do it, and it's that confidence. And somebody to just give you a little nudge and go, come on, let's do it. And sometimes that's all you need. And the power of the community. We've heard 3 very, very different stories around how impact can make huge positive changes, whether it's impacting whole cultures, impacting an island community, and with what Liz is doing is impacting an environmental change. I mean, it's incredible, and today's been hugely inspiring. Very mindful of time. Feel free if people want to stay on, or if anybody's got any questions, but we are running 10 minutes late. I mean, we could be here for another hour, I'm sure. But if anybody does have any questions, please unmute or write something in the chat.
I have saved the chat, but if anyone wants to attend the presentation tomorrow night, I've put my email address in there. Do just send me an email and I'll send you a Zoom link.
I did just get a request from Julian actually saying he'd love to get involved, so I'll send Julian the link.
Yeah, I actually wanted to pull out, just mention a stat that I disappeared to find it in my bookshelf. It was in my bedroom, but a stat about biodiversity, because when you brought that up, Elizabeth, it really reminded me of something I read a few days ago, which is that a WWF survey of nearly 4,000 species found a massive 58% reduction since 1970, while a study of flying insects found a frightening 75% decline in 27 years. So it's a huge, I mean, it's a huge topic, huge subject, but when you hear statistics like that, it really brings it home. And I think from my opinion, listening to everybody's discussions, you can see here how Danielle and the Bob community are creating these safe spaces for people to really come together, be really honest with what they're trying to achieve and their purposes. And you can see how by creating these safe spaces for people to be in, it's just creating these incredible projects that just wouldn't appear without that. So that's amazing. Well done, everybody. What a great panel discussion. What an inspirational morning that's been for me. It's been great. Thank you so much. I've been like with my notes like this, so if anyone wants to share them, feel free to get in contact with me and I'll email them over at the end of the day.
You know what's fascinating?
The other thing that's interesting.
Sorry.
I was just going to say the other thing that's. You go.
It's my turn. What's fascinating about this whole conversation today is it's almost making me feel like I'm still not doing enough. It almost feels like there always has to be an intention to do more, because I think we can, and the opportunity is there to do that. Sorry, Liz, you go.
No, it was just to say that I think one of the things that that has been quite powerful for me is the sort of the thinking of 20th century thinking versus 21st century thinking, and it's really helped me to roll out my to communicate my project. I think without that I might have given up, because the contempt of the 20th century people thinking to someone who comes along with the 21st century mindset can be quite overwhelming. Yeah. And so I've started using that in the last couple of weeks, and it just reassures me that I'm not mad, you know, that actually it's okay to think like this, and that one day the 20th century thinking people will be going, oh my God, did people ever actually think like that? You know, so I don't know if anyone else has struggled with the same thing, but I thought I'd just mention it because it is something I've learned through Lindsay actually, and it's really helped me. And I think the other thing, you know, for all of us to remember is that we're in that small percentage of the sort of the leaders driving into influencers into, so you know, we are going to get a lot of no's to our yeses, and not to be put off by that. Yeah, so I don't know if that's helpful, but.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's the thing that's brought us all here, you know, and yeah, just want to acknowledge Lindsay and Catherine and the Bob community. I think it's made a massive difference to Mel and I, particularly last year, to have you know, an environment where we could turn up every week, and it wasn't just around learning, but it was about being part of impacting change, but also helping us navigate through a really difficult time last year, whether you were a startup or an SME or a, you know, a company that's been around for a year, 5, 10, as 30 years in the case of Andrew's family business. It's been a huge confidence booster to feel like, there is light at the end of the tunnel, but it's just learning what that light is and where it is and how you find it. And so again, thank you for bringing us together. We've still got a way to go, and we're on the same course, which goes to September 2021, but the community is growing and the conversations are still going. So again, thank you for that. And yeah, more to come, I'm sure.
You.
Well, look, thanks. What do you reckon, Hannah? Should we wrap up?
Yeah, definitely. Let's wrap up. I mean, I've come away completely inspired, not overwhelmed, Gina. It's inspiring and exciting that there's so much interesting stuff going on. So don't be overwhelmed, be inspired.
In a good way, in a good way.
In a good way. So yeah, I'll put all the links. There's already a link in the chat for the Bob Earth Facebook community. So if you haven't seen that, the link's on there. So get involved. I'm also going to have all the links to everybody's projects and emails and everything that was in the chat in my notes. So if you want them, just let me know. So yeah, thanks so much everybody for your time today, and I hope you have a great rest of the week. And we'll be here again next week with the governance workshop, which I'm really excited about, which is looking all about the mission and the social and environmental impact of businesses and business structures. But as you can hear, there's a whining dog, so I'm going to be on mute now.
That made me laugh. Thank you so much, Gina, for hosting this and for the incredible work that you and Mel are doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. No, really enjoying it, and thanks for being a part of it.
Thank you, everyone.
Great.
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hey, Danielle.
Gina, yeah, I stayed on here just to say
Good.
thank you. I'm so glad that you sent me that text, because I actually, it started obviously at 10 p.m, but I had it down at 11 p.m. So did some country change daylight saving or something?
Oh, I'm so sorry, but I'm really pleased you turned up.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you text me. What an amazing group. I mean, there's 700 million amazing businesses in there. Like every one of them could probably speak for half an hour at least.
I know, honestly, it just doesn't feel long enough having an hour session, and today was amazing. I'm so
what
excited to hear
prompted
about
this? I just wasn't sure. I thought it was B Corp driven, and then like I'm happy I was on it. Thank you for inviting me. But then I thought, oh my God, it's Bob driven. So was it B Corp? Was it driven by B Corp or?
I guess it's a combination, because Gina is both, whereas I am just a B Corp. But I mean, I think it's all it's like sustainability. It's all a Venn diagram, isn't it, of everyone kind of coming together in different ways. But yeah,
because one of the things that B Corp does, and obviously it runs totally different to Bob, but one of the things that you could intersect or that could drive it, because the people who are sitting here right now are all certified B Corps, is that they ask you, what can you do to contribute towards those categories, either governance, environment, or sustainability differently. Yeah. So that could be a panel in itself where people could bring a question. Like, I don't know how many people are on there and how you got that number of people. I was so impressed. But they could come prepared with a question to ask anybody on B Corp. I don't want to be as B Corp certified yet, or I'm not interested, but I am interested in driving my business this way. What is something that I could perhaps do differently? And that's how it can build a side B Corp panel out of Bob, or whatever hat you want to wear it all under, really. Because at the end of the day, I think anybody who was on this Zoom meeting has the same objectives of life.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Hannah's got a business network she's creating herself, and that is for businesses who are purpose-led, who may or may not want to be a B Corp, but they have the option because Hannah's a B leader. And the idea, Danielle, because it's B Corp month, every week we're covering a subject matter aligned to the assessments. It just so happens week 4 is about community, and the last week
I see
is around government. So to your point, we are discussing each subject matters, but you know what, they all kind of link together.
Yeah, so I think probably, if I could give any feedback, that part that you just pointed out to me, and you probably made it explicit why I wasn't on the Zoom. But if it was made explicit so that everybody knows that, so that they can come with a question, like, you know, I don't think there would be one person on that panel that, you know, probably couldn't come up with a question. What's one thing that we could brainstorm to my business to help me grow a stronger community?
Yeah, great. Yeah, it's good feedback. But yes, every week we announce that it's aligned to the assessment, and each week we talk about
That's fantastic.
Subject matter. I mean, we might, I think once we've got this out of the way, Hannah and I might talk about carrying it on, but creating a different format around that. And actually, that's a really good way of doing it, actually, Hannah.
It was basically steal that, Danielle, and say it was our idea.
100%. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Never short of ideas.
And I'm so glad to hear that you're that with the struggles at the beginning of the pandemic, it seems like your business has grown back so quickly. Like, is incredible. I've got a few friends in India who have been really struggling, actually, because there's just no support out there, and it's been quite difficult to kind of be on the other end of the world and not really know how I can support that, because they're working within a completely different system to me. So it's good to know that things are building back.
Thank you.
So quickly.
It was pretty treacherous, but you're 100% correct, and I have every confidence that it'll go back to bigger and stronger and better than before. Like, we're on this massive trajectory right now that hardly anyone can keep up with, and yet at 9 o'clock this morning, us in India who have never been on lockdown, actually, I read that the whole state, when we've never been busier for like 18 months, is now about to go on lockdown. And I'm like, oh my God, there's always something. What am I supposed to tell these brands now?
Oh. Whereabouts in India are you, Danielle?
Down the south, Tamil Nadu, just north of Pondicherry, right down the south.
Oh, okay.
It's really scenic. It's a gorgeous area.
Danielle, I'd love to follow up with you, because we started some chats last year, didn't we? And
yeah, are you still involved with any of those windows, Gina?
Not at the moment. It's been tricky. It's been tricky. It is tricky. But like you say, things are lifting here, particularly. Things are changing. So it might be a good time to pick up that conversation with you at some point. Maybe in a more favourable hour to you. I'll get up earlier.
Because I have UK customers, I'm often up at this hour. I just can't get out of bed at the other end, so it's all okay. Okay, thank you so much, Gina, and lovely to meet you, Hannah and Mel. I guess you're Gina's other half, are you?
Yeah, I'm the silent partner on this one. I'm a brother, not her other half. You know.
Well, other half DNA-wise.
Okay, got it.
Say, Danielle, you see the family resemblance because we both have this frown line here. So,
yeah. What are you talking about?
So, Mel, what do you do?
Well, I'm more on the business transformation, process improvement, waste elimination side of things. That's been my thing over the years. And after spending many years helping corporate businesses make more money, came to this slow realization that I was wasting my time. So now we're doing something a lot more interesting, and hopefully, business for good and purpose-led businesses is right up our street. So that's where we're putting our attention now.
So if you need a global operations person, advisor, Danielle, Mel is the person for that.
When you have nothing to do and you wish to organise the shipments of jumpers all over the world, just let me know.
Bear that in mind.
Danielle, I shall drop you.
Thank you.
We'll get a chatter, but thank you so much for joining us. It's
pleasure.
Really good to see you again. Thanks,
guys. Thanks, Gina. Bye.
Bye.